My name is Dee Roberts, and I'm the Reference and Outreach Librarian here at Pitt's Theology Library at Candler. And I have the privilege and honor of being the supervisor for this Morgan Fellows program that we have. So welcome, good afternoon. Hello to all of you in person, but also greetings to all of our virtual friends joining us today. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this year's Morgan Forum, That the Scriptures Should Come to Light, William Tyndale and 500 Years of the English New Testament. Today is a special occasion on which we gather not to just exchange ideas, but to recognize and celebrate a remarkable group of individuals, our Morgan Fellows. Sharing his collection with those both inside and outside of traditional academia was a value of Michael Morgan's. He often would open his home library to students, giving them an opportunity to engage closely with the treasures in his collection. And that is the spirit that is embodied in our Morgan Fellows program. The Morgan Fellows program is a 6-week primary research intensive opportunity where master's level students dive deeply into a self-selected item from the J. Michael Morgan collection. Our fellows come from diverse backgrounds and represent both Candler School of Theology and Columbia Theological Seminary. What unites them is a shared drive to ask important questions, to listen deeply, and to contribute in ways that extend beyond themselves. Ayodele John, Kwan, Sergio, and Tina have spent the last several weeks engaging in the work of provenance, tracing their items through time and space to give us all a glimpse into the stories behind how these 8 items came to be and why we should care about them now. They've learned the skills of creating descriptive metadata, creating infographics, which you can find in your folders, and they have also gained tools for giving engaging presentations and how to narrow scope and focus when there are just a lot of rabbit holes that one can dive down. So the Morgan Forum stands as a space for thoughtful dialogue, fresh perspectives, and meaningful connections to the past, present, and future of the Bible. At its core, it reflects a belief that scholarship is not just about achievement, but about curiosity and courage to engage with complex challenges. So I am excited for all of you to learn from this year's cohort and to be challenged by them, and to see how they weave the stories of relevance for items compiled long ago. To everyone here today, thank you for being part of this year's forum, for being here to support this year's fellows, and for continuing to help us foster a space where ideas and learning can flourish. So without more yapping from me, I am honored to welcome our 2026 Morgan Fellows.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming today. My name is Tina Willoughby, and I'm a student here at Candler. I'm excited to present to you today a Bible from the Michael Morgan collection and a story of friendship. I chose to research Young's literal translation of the Bible, published in 1907, because I'm a collector of old Bibles and I have a passion for biblical art and poetry. This Bible has a connection to T.S. Eliot. I first studied him when I was in high school. I found him to be very brilliant and interesting. The condition of the Bible is very good overall. The pages have softened and some of the red ink has been worn off from use. Some smearing of the printing ink is visible on a few pages, and in one area it appears that a fingerprint occurred during the printing process. There are some pages with foxing or mold-like material, which is normal for its age. Here we have the provenance. In 1907, Robert Young published the Bible. E.F. Harrison owned it somewhere between 1907 and 1914. In 1914, it was gifted to Colin Brooks. And Michael Morgan became the owner sometime after the 60s. In 2023, the Morgan collection was donated to the Pitt's Theological Library. The author, Robert Young, was born in 1822 in Scotland. He was a self-taught biblical scholar, linguist, printer, and publisher. His notable publications were his literal translation of the Bible, which has 4 editions. In 1862 was the first edition, 1887 followed, 1898, and then after his death in 1907, the final edition was updated with his notes. The Analytical Concordance to the Bible was published in 1879, and many editions have followed as it's very popular for scholars and clergy, as it's useful for understanding how translation choices shape meaning. Young's commentary on the New Testament, along with his other 2 books, are great tools to use together for research. Young's literal translation, he wanted to show English writers exactly how the Hebrew and Greek texts are written by preserving original verb tenses. He wanted to avoid theological bias, and he wanted the words to be as consistent as possible. When reading his translation, it is lively, dramatic, and shows the beauty of the original text. Moving on to the inscription on the inner front cover, it reads, W. Colin Brooks, with every good wish for his birthday, from E.F. Harrison, December 22nd, 1914, Proverbs 3. To understand more about the inscription, let's look at who Colin Brooks is. William Colin Brooks was born in England in 1893. He voluntarily joined the British Army at age 22, and while there, he won a military cross as second lieutenant. His career was in journalism, as he was a poet, writer, editor, and broadcaster. In the book, Fleet Street Journals, it mentions his friendship with many notable people, including T.S. Eliot. He was married to Lillian Brooks, and they had 5 kids. 1 died at birth. Who was E.F. Harrison? This was a big mystery to me. From what I can tell during my research, I believe she was a notable artist, a family friend, and I believe this book was a gift from her to Brooks as he was a young adult and loved to write poetry, or perhaps it's because his father had just passed away, or maybe she knew he was about to leave for the British Army. Thomas Stearns Eliot was a brilliant writer born in Missouri in 1888. He studied philosophy in Europe, and while at Harvard, he moved to England and began his poetry career in 1915 at the age of 27. He wrote a modern masterpiece a few years later called The Wasteland. It was regarded as one of the most important poems of the 20th century and a defining work of literary modernism. Many of his works of poetry, plays, and books were produced from 1930 to 1947. Finally, in 1948, his brilliance was recognized and he won a Nobel Prize for his work. He was married twice, and he was introduced to his second wife, Valerie Fletcher, by Colin Brooks. Eliot hired her as a secretary. They got married and they kept it a secret. World War I began in 1914, and the psychological effects could be seen in T.S. Eliot's work. His famous works had themes of trauma, cultural collapse, and fear. In The Wasteland, The Burial of the Dead, it could be seen as a portrait from the results of World War I. It reads, "Out of the stony rubbish, son of man, a heap of broken images, the dead tree gives no shelter. I will show you fear in a handful of dust." Eliot stayed in England during the war as he was afraid to travel. T.S. Eliot and Colin Brooks were friends for 19 years until Brooks passed away. According to Eliot, they met at a dining club in England, which had just been formed and of which they were both foundation members. At the club, he had political discussions, enjoyed new acquaintanceships, and he met and was attracted to Colin Brooks' intelligence. He says they were of same mind on topical questions and had the same political point of view. They were both intellectually alike, which pointed to a deeper source of congeniality. They were so close that T.S. Eliot wrote and presented Brooks' eulogy. This is a copy from Emory's Rose Library of the eulogy. In this clip, Eliot states that he often thinks of a sentence in a private letter from Colin Brooks where Brooks says, "But the great thing about life is this perpetual excitement. At any moment in anybody's house, one may find some great new thing." Eliot goes on to say, "I believe that Colin Brooks has now found the greatest new thing." What I find intriguing in all of Eliot's work is that he does not show personal vulnerability, but when he speaks of his friend Brooks, there is authenticity there and lots of love. This gorgeous church is in England and is where Brooks' service of life was held. It was one of the first Christian sites built in London. Many famous people have had their memorial services there in the chapel, and you can go today for tours or to just go to a church service. I would like to close with a couple of things. Here are some words from Young's Literal Translation Bible from Proverbs 3, which was mentioned in the inscription. Before I read this, if you're interested, you can actually listen to Young's Bible at Oxford University's library online. Proverbs 3. For the length of the days and years, life and peace they do add to thee. Let not kindness and truth forsake thee. Find grace and good understanding in the eyes of God and man. O happiness of a man who hath found wisdom. Be not afraid of sudden fear, and of the desolation of the wicked when it cometh, for Jehovah is at thy side. I would like to say thank you to Dee and Bo for this opportunity, and thanks to Brady for the research and writing advice in my class. Thank you to Michael Morgan's family and their generous donation. And to Michael Morgan, I've heard many fabulous things about you here at Candler, and I think you and I would have been the best of friends with our love of Bibles and Jesus. Thank you.